Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Claude Clark. I'm coming to you from Creative Source at YouTube.com. Today, we're going to take a look at ancestor images used in traditional African art, and we'll also take a look at the reliquary images, and I'll try to help you distinguish between what is ancestor and what is a relic. Okay, without further ado, we'll get started on our topic. We're going to start by pulling up the website Earth Metropolis, going directly to the database. The first thing you want to get into mind is what is a ancestor image. Think of yourself as putting photographs on a altar or mantelpiece with candles and various maybe relics that represent the deceased. Some cases you might have a urn, which would be a relic, has the ashes of the deceased in it. That's not an ancestor item. It's an ancestor relic, but it's not an ancestor figure. The photographs would be considered ancestor images. Okay. We're going to put in ancestor and type it just above this email thing. Find it, search for photos, photograph. Okay, ancestor. If you're not familiar with how to use the database, I suggest that you first look at the video on the use of the database, Introduction to African Art Database, because otherwise you'll have a lot of trouble with this this session. Okay, let's see Yoruba mask. Let's see what that. Okay, now this part is difficult, so what I'm going to do is skip over and then come back. Let's see if we can give you an ancestor figure first. That's bowling. Most people, if they don't know anything about art of indigenous people, they know they've heard of an ancestor figure, and it's some sort of object that is supposed to represent the ancestor. Okay. This would be just like a photograph. It's not the same as a photograph, but if you keep the photograph in mind, there are no hair or teeth or fingernails, anything that are attached to the photograph. So the photograph represents remind you of the ancestor, remembrance of the ancestor. Okay, this come back to just a moment. I'm just going to step up. These are royal stools in the royal family. They're turned over to the side so no one can use those stools, so that the spirits from other sources do not get into the stool. So they turn them over on their side, and they're blackened. Okay. The stools used by common people, they use and what takes place. I do not have information on that, so what you will be getting is information concerning how and what the nobility use. But keep in mind, this is something that is throughout the culture. The common people also use the stool as an ancestor. This is among the Akan speaking people, the Ashanti in particular. This particular photograph is from the Ashanti. This is what you would call a stool kitchen. This is where the food is prepared for the royal stools, the royal Ashanti stools. The food is prepared here, and then the form of sort of a libation, and is brushed and fed into the wood of the stool. Some more examples of ancestor stools. When a person dies, it's up to family members, or it's up to people in the court system that deal with the royal house of stools to decide what is the most appropriate stool to use as an ancestor stool. Ancestor stools are not carved. They are designated. That is, over a period of time, the attachment to the stool or the family's choice of the stool is what finalizes the ancestor stool. It could be a stool that person used for a bath. It could be a stool person used for dinner or eating purposes. So it's determined sometime after the person is demise, another ancestor stool. Now, we're going to pretend that these are ancestor masks. They look like the ones that I'm showing you, but they are not necessarily ancestor masks. Okay, Dan, Cran, Bassa, Nende, people in the rice cultural Guinea Coast, coastal countries, Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Ivory Coast, they use masks. People of members of the Poro society, they use masks for ancestors, and they do not use figures or stools. This is a Dan mask. Again, we're just going to pretend that these might be ancestor figures. We can't tell by looking at them. Alright, it's another Dan mask. Now, this brings us to what you're most familiar with, an ancestor figure. We looked at something by the Baoli, and now we're looking at a Sanutho ancestor figure. Let's look at another Baoli. It's a Baoli ancestor figure. Now, on the Baoli, we cannot necessarily tell what figures are ancestor figures either, but this, at least the information that comes on this particular item, that this is an ancestor figure, and we saw that a while back. Now, this brings us to another phenomenon. This is an ancestral, almost like an ancestral pageant. The Egungun members of the Yoruba, they don't have ancestor figures. They do not have ancestor masks. They do not have ancestor stools. So people personify the ancestors of different homes, different communities. During the old days, the Yoruba used to bury the dead underneath the floor of the house that they lived in. I know it sounds spooky. Reed Johnson. You'll find out more about that. Okay, so it's not such a bad idea for the Egungun to visit the household. Okay, so your ancestor's not out in a graveyard somewhere distant from the home. He's in there right with you. And so what the Egungun, what they do is they bring this the deceased to life just temporarily. You get a chance to talk to them. They personify the voice of the deceased. Egungun, here's another one. These are Yoruba. Egungun is a Yoruba ancestor, let's see, person who impersonates the ancestor. The image that you're looking at has nothing to do with the ancestor themselves. The image that you're looking at represents Egungun. And here's another Egungun. Next, what we're going to do is show you some reliquary items. Okay, reliquary. We're not having any problems with the reliquary. Good. Excellent. Alright. This is a clay vessel. It's called a Abusua Kurorua, and it contains fingernail parts and hair clippings, the same items that were used in the golden stool when it descended from heaven. The participants that watched this stool descend, they had their fingernails and some hair from each person at the occasion, and those were put into the stool. They were the representative of the various ethnic groups that they had come to, and this was a means by which to unite the Ashanti Confederacy. Here's another one of the same image. These vessels are put into the shrine area where ancestor stools and other relics are kept. You might be able to say that maybe an ancestor figure is a relic, but reliquary is not a ancestor representation in terms of a image or picture of the ancestor. Reliquary is just what it is. It's a relic connected with the ancestor. Here's a funeral pot. It's another relic. Funerary clay head. The other one was clay also. These last two items, they were made out of, let's see, pretty sure it was made out of ceramic. Okay. Oops. Alright, this is Sikad wa Kofi. Sikad wa Kofi. It's a hard name for me to pronounce. And it's turned over in its side. Some of the relics that were attached to this particular relic are missing, but the Ashanti managed to keep most of it intact. This represents the sum, the soul of the Ashanti people. It is personified. It has attendants. Person carries an umbrella, and is only brought out on very, very special occasions. The Ashanti people, only people that own something like this. Also mention that they are members of the Akan linguistic group. Now we go to Gabon. This is reliquary. I don't have a picture of one of these with a basket underneath. I've seen them attached to baskets, but I have not been able to obtain a photograph of one with the basket yet. So you have to imagine, this is not a mask. Sometimes it's referred to as a mask. Generally what I do is put down what the source calls it. This is just an image that's attached to the reliquary, attached to the urn. Actually, that's what it is. It goes to a part of the urn. Does not represent the image of the deceased. The deceased is inside that basket. The one that you were just looking at is from Gabon, but I don't have the name of the group. This is Koda. Koda from Gabon. This is also Koda from Gabon. As far as I know, the first one was Koda as well. This is Fang, and it's the same, exactly the same as the other figures that you just looked at. They're reliquary figures. This is by the Fang people living in Gabon. This is a Fang figure, and it's a reliquary figure attached to a basket. This is a Fang figure. And the last one, that's Fang, but we would ordinarily classify it as Koda. So the people in the same area exchange a lot in their imagery. They live along the Agwe River, and they live in Gabon, and they're in close proximity, even though they have art that distinguishes them from other groups. Okay, this brings us to a close, and we will see you again next time.